Today, we are diving into what has to be one of the riskiest, most high-stakes pranks in the history of Indian YouTube. And this is more than just a silly joke. It's a wild story about friendship, rivalry, and what happens when you decide to poke some of the biggest creators on the internet.
I mean, just think about it for a second. Imagine you have a direct line to creators with millions and millions of followers, people who have built these massive online empires. What do you think would happen if you sent them a message that was specifically designed to be insulting? A message that could, easily start a huge online war.
And get this, you did it completely on purpose. It was all part of a dare that you just couldn't get out of. Well, that's the exact, incredibly stressful situation one of India's top vloggers found himself in.
So the guy at the center of all this chaos is Saurav Joshi, a huge vlogger who got put in a really tough spot by his friends. They basically cooked up a challenge that was engineered for maximum drama, forcing him to risk his relationships with some of the most powerful people on YouTube.
The setup itself was actually pretty simple, but the potential for disaster was, well, it was off the charts. You had two bowls. One was filled with the names of India's biggest YouTubers, and the other had these brutally sharp, provocative messages. Saurav's job? He had to blindly pick one from each bowl and then send that message directly from his own personal account.
And believe me, this was no act. The stakes were incredibly real. Saurav himself even said his hands were literally shaking as he was getting ready to send out these messages. He knew that just one bad reaction could ignite a massive controversy and possibly ruin friendships he'd spent years building. Okay, so the rules are set, the pressure is on, and this is where the digital chaos really kicks off. One by one, Saurav starts drawing names and sending out these messages that were pretty much guaranteed to get a reaction. First up, Elvish Yadav, a creator who's known for his super bold personality and massive following. The message was a straight-up challenge to his craft. So Saurav hits send, and right away, the tension just skyrockets. You gotta wonder, how is a guy like Elvish gonna take that?
Next, he sends a message to arguably one of the most famous YouTubers in all of India, Kerry Minati. And this one was a pretty sharp jab at his content style, questioning the very core of his channel. Sending a message like that to a creator of his level is, well, it's like walking right into the lion's den.
You'd think creators known for their high-effort, really intense videos would be safe, right? Nope. Mr. Indian Hacker, a guy who does these huge experiments for his videos, got a message calling his work boring. For someone who puts in that much work, that has to sting.
And the hits just kept on coming. Fukra Insan, another massive creator, gets a message that questions his work ethic. So at this point, Saurav has basically launched a bunch of digital grenades and is just sitting there bracing for the explosions to start going off in his DMs.
It really didn't take long for the first replies to start trickling in. And this is where it gets so interesting, because we start to see just how differently people react when they get a sudden, totally out of the blue insult from a peer.
And the responses could not have been more different. On one hand, you've got Thuggish, who right away knew something was up and just replied with a laughing emoji. But on the other hand, Pile Gaming's reply was just a single angry-faced emoji, which really suggests she was not amused and was genuinely offended.
But look, text replies are one thing. A phone call? That's a whole different level. This is the moment everyone, especially Saurav, was dreading, when the prank stops being just messages on a screen and becomes a direct, real-time confrontation.
And of course, the very first person to call is one of the biggest names on the entire list. Saurav looks down at his phone, he sees the caller ID, it's Elvish Yadav. You can just imagine the feeling. This could be the moment the entire thing just blows up in his face.
But then, the call takes a completely unexpected turn. Instead of being angry, Elvish's first reaction is just concern. He doesn't assume it's an insult. His first thought is that Saurav's account must have been hacked and that maybe he was in some kind of trouble.
And this moment just reveals so much about their actual friendship. Saurav has said that Elvish is always the first person to call him, whether it's to say congrats on something good or to check in when things are tough. So this prank, which was designed to create drama, actually ended up highlighting this really deep level of support.
And it turns out, Elvish's wholesome reaction wasn't a one-off. As more and more replies came in, a really surprising theme started to emerge. This prank, instead of driving people apart, was somehow bringing them closer together.
I mean, if you look at the breakdown of all the responses, it's pretty clear the vast majority of creators either totally got the joke, decided to play along, or responded with genuine concern. Very few seemed actually annoyed, which honestly shows a remarkable amount of class and good sportsmanship in the community.
And this just perfectly shows the range of personalities out there. You had crazy XYZ who took the criticism seriously and actually asked for clarification. MythPat played along perfectly with just one word, done. Round 2 Hell had a hilarious response, assuming Saurav's little brother got a hold of the phone. And Lakshay Chaudhary, totally unfazed. All good, bro.
But maybe the most powerful and telling response of all came from Fukra Insan. After he got that low-effort content message, he sent back this really heartfelt video reply, basically saying, hey, this silly dare is the whole reason we're finally talking again after such a long time. So what's the big takeaway here? It's that this prank, this challenge that was literally designed to cause conflict, ended up doing the complete opposite. It broke the ice, it opened up conversations between creators who hadn't talked in ages, and it actually made their community feel a little bit stronger.
And in the end, Saurav himself said that despite the initial fear, the trembling hands and all that, the whole thing turned out to be overwhelmingly positive. It was this really weird, unconventional way to reconnect with a ton of his peers all at once.
It kind of leaves you with this fascinating thought, right? In this online world that can feel so competitive and sometimes a little lonely, maybe, just maybe, a little bit of shared chaos is exactly what people need to remember the human connections behind the channels.